Alright guys, welcome to the third episode of making a rowboat out of pallets. Today we're going to be sealing and fiberglassing the boat, which if done correctly will waterproof it. Right now I'm unscrewing all the boards and squirting down a stream of silicone caulk on each joint where wood touches wood. Not just where the floorboards meet, but also where the floorboards touch the frame, and that's just to make sure we're not going to have any leaks in the boat, in theory. Now once all the boards are back in place, I'm going to put some extra caulk on any big gaps from the boards warping or the different sizes in each floorboard. Looking back, I really should have planed them down to a uniform thickness, but I didn't. We're going to repeat the same process for the bow of our boat, and we're making sure that we're squeezing caulk right in that joint where the bow meets the bottom of the boat, because that part of the boat will probably take quite a bit of stress and I don't want any water leaking in there. Now pallets of course have a lot of holes in them from nails most of the time, and I tried to use the sinful or the unholy boards as much as possible, but the ones that did have holes in them I just filled up with caulk. Now sometimes there were some big cracks in the boards and I just put a big old bead of silicone on there and tried to smear it in there with my fingers. And once we're done with the bottom of the boat, we're just going to repeat the same process on our bow. Now the only problem with using silicone caulk is that our epoxy or resin isn't going to stick to it. Not a lot of things stick to silicone besides more silicone. So I really wish that I would have been a lot more neater and cleanlier while I was putting down the silicone, because I ended up having to spend about 2 or 3 hours with a chisel trying to scrape off all the excess silicone. Now, since this is a rowboat, I'd like to be able to paddle in at least one general direction instead of just spinning circles. So I made this rudder out of a pallet support because it seemed relatively hard, and I figured a good hard rudder would last for a while. Now I'm not sure if this next step is necessary, but I beveled the bottom of our rudder. I figured that making it more aerodynamic would help the boat flow through the water a little bit easier. Whether or not it actually helps, I don't know, but it kept me busy. So once the rudder's made, we'll attempt to screw it in from the other side, but realize that we need some supports, so I just cut some out of a 2x4 with the table saw and a bandsaw. Then I wanted to seal the bottom boards, and I'm using some West Systems epoxy, which I got for free from an old engineering teacher, and that saved me close to about 80 bucks. And I'm doing this hopefully so that these boards won't rot if/when they get water on them. And just another reminder, I try to scrape off all the excess silicone caulk. That way a lot of the boards would be exposed to the epoxy, so the epoxy could soak in and, in theory, waterproof the boards. Now the corners and edges of the boat look pretty sketchy, so to strengthen them and more importantly cover them up, me and a friend bent some corrugated sheet metal into rightish angles, squirted some foam sealant and silicone caulk in there, and then just tacked those into place over top of the corners and edges. And we figured that would not only provide a little bit of support, but hopefully it would waterproof it as well. Then came the fiberglassing. And if you know me by now, you'll know that I'll probably use the cheap stuff when it's available. And that's exactly what I did here. But even buying the cheapest fiberglass and resin out there, I still ended up dropping about 70 bucks on the resin and fiberglass. So after crying a little bit, I trimmed the fiberglass to shape and started wetting it using the resin and an old credit card. During this process, I came across two main problems. One of them was it was not a complete uniform smooth surface, so there were going to be air pockets underneath the fiberglass, which isn't ideal, but there's really not much I can do now besides start over, and of course I don't want to do that. The second problem was the rudder. Looking back, I probably should have cut out pieces of fiberglass that fit the rudder exactly. Here I kind of just drape the sheets over it and hope for the best, and you'll be able to see the problems that I had with that later on in the video. So 2 resin coats later, it was time for this boat's first voyage, I just wanted to see if it would float. And as you can see, it does float. But after about 30 seconds, I saw 2 little leaks in the corners of the boat. And once I got in it, water just started seeping in from everywhere. So I have my work cut out for me for sealing this boat. But the silver lining is that the boat floats. And for being a small little 90-pound boat, I'd say it rides pretty well. And it's fairly steady with a 160-pound person in it. So if you've made it this far, thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in my next video.